Today we are talking about franchise misconceptions, which is always interesting to me because we're in the franchise space. And so we talk about franchising all the time. We know how it works, but the reality is our clients are not. So today we're talking about 3 big franchise misconceptions. We're going to start with, I've never heard of this brand.
Yeah. So what I think is a lot of times with the brand, you haven't heard of it because some of the bigger brands are really hard to get into, right? So they're more expensive. So it's a bigger investment on the front end. And also the territories are really limited, right? So there's not much opportunity for you to build a business and develop it in your particular market.
Yeah, great point. I think about it like trying to develop real estate in a busy city. Yeah, there's no territory left. So you either, you have to go pay a whole bunch of money for the limited land that's there, or you buy a piece of real estate that's already there for a significant multiple, right? Franchising is the same. Anything is the same with supply and demand. Well, that leads then to, so if a client says that, how does Franchise Sidekick solve the problem, right? And the first is, that's our job. Our job is to help them identify brands that are going to be the next big thing, right? I'm a big believer that risk actually comes down with franchising once the brand hits, let's say, around 100 units. At 100 units, you start to get national brand recognition, you get more experience training and leadership and customer acquisition and all the things that come with scale. But a person from outside of franchising looking at all these brands that are under 100 units, how do they identify which ones have what it takes and which ones don't? So Mike, when you talk about how Franchise Sidekick helps identify those, talk a little bit about that.
Yeah, I think a lot of it is, brands come to us, right? So we're not sitting there Googling all that kind of stuff. We're known in the industry where brands want to come to us and talk to our investors. So we get access to a lot of things that are even early days, but we've done this so many times that we know what to look for, right? With anything, with enough reps and enough practice, and with us, we've done over thousands of territories that we've put investors in. We know what good looks like. So strong validation, strong leadership. We know the industry and we go, hey, we know this brand sold really well in here a long time ago. I think this is a differentiator, but same industry. We've seen the patterns over and over and over. And we're really good at knowing what our clients want and what the brands need and pairing up that match.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. The experience we have it's like a baseball scout. They go look at a player in the minor leagues or, a college player and say, do they have the tools to make it in the bigs? That's what our job is to do for our clients. Toronto, one of the things I love about our days is every day we get to meet. We meet as a team and we get to talk about franchise brands and clients' experience. What do you think about that? Why is that an advantage for our clients when we're talking every day about these brands?
Yeah, I think that's an advantage because everybody is in the loop on what's happening, right? So if we find out some insider information on a particular brand, we are talking about that insider information and really we're building that value for each other as a team, but we're also building that value in for our clients. So you're going to come in knowing that we're communicating on a regular basis, so we're not going to miss anything, but we also see where the holes are in particular brands, right? So we're able to help you to really vet out that brand and make sure that it's going to be a good fit for you because we've done it and we've looked at it first.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I've worked with several commercial real estate agents in Omaha, where I'm from. And I've worked with groups that are kind of more of a solo person that's out there looking for real estate. And then I've worked with the largest group in town. And the thing that I really appreciate about the largest group in town is they meet regularly and they say, I've got a client who's looking for this. Who knows of a space that's available or coming available, right? There's that power of team. And I work with them exclusively now because I want that power of team to help me find what I'm looking for. Mike, I want to come back to what you talked about real quick, just because, why are we qualified to identify what a brand needs? And it's because we have the track record to do it, right? How many brands have we worked with? I don't even know the number, but we've worked with many brands that have started very small. I mean, in some cases, sub 10 open locations. We've looked at the leadership, we've looked at the characteristics of the brand, and we said, we think you have what it takes. Now, we're very upfront with our clients. Like, if you get in with a brand like this, you're considered a pioneer. What that means, bigger territory opportunity, more influence with the franchisor. You're on the front lines of developing things. What you lose is maybe that support that a brand has at 100, 200 or more units, right? So I think of Koala Insulation, right? We started working with them very early on, maybe sub 10 units, and today they're over 300. You've got brands like Donut Envy that we're doing great with right now. When we started with them, they were 17 units, and within 6 months, they're over 100 locations or 100 trucks open. We've got Smash My Trash, Fastest Labs, All Dry. I mean, I could just go on and on about these brands that we've had to apply. So we look for things like what you said, existing happy franchisees, right? We talk to them. We understand that. We look for a commitment to open, transparent validation. We look at the leadership. Are you a leader that understands your industry? Are you a leader that understands franchising? Or the best is, are you a leader that understands both, right? And many other things that we look for, proven customer acquisition strategies. We don't need to get into all of them here, but just the track record shows we know how to go through the application process, identify what's important, and bring in these brands that are going to be the next big thing.
Yeah, and you speak of track record. I think the ultimate track record is how successful are our clients once they get in? And a big one is a lot of them come back and they're like, Mike, what's next? What's the next brand I'm buying? Or I want more territories or something like that. Because unlike most transactions like this, it's not a thanks, we work together, see you never. We're checking up with our people long term and going, hey, what do you know now that we didn't know early on, right? I have some franchisees that were, early days expansion to the US for Everline. 1 and 2, they're US based. Or the first Donut Envy guys. We have a lot of these early ones that we stay up with them long term and get insider from our clients that we know through and through, not waiting through validation, not waiting through what the founder is going to release to us and all that kind of stuff. We have clients in most of these brands already operational and giving us real feedback.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's great point. And there's one more thing on my mind around this that I think is important. And there's other things in our lives that we buy that we maybe are not familiar with, but we get comfortable with it. So for instance, think about big investments, right? If we have to go buy mutual funds or stocks or things like that, long-term bonds, we might buy cars that we're not that familiar with. But one that really sticks out to me is like real estate.
A house.
A house, yeah.
Absolutely.
You're in a competitive process with other people that want to buy this home, and you have to get comfortable very quickly to make this long-term decision. Toronto, have you gone through that? How do you think it compares to what we do?
Totally gone through that. I think, one of the things with real estate is, number one, you're working with somebody who's an expert, right? You're working with an agent. You probably wouldn't go and knock on the door of a house that you want to buy and say, hey, let me take a look inside, and see if that's going to be a good fit for you. So you're working with somebody who's been through this process with tons of other clients, and they understand what it looks like. And then in addition to that, you're going to probably get an inspection on this house. Mm-hmm. So you're going to get that insider information, not relying on what the seller is telling you and wanting you to know, but that inspection is going to tell you, how old is the roof? Have there been any insurance claims on this house? And that's really the value that we're bringing as an advisor, because we're going to get you that inside information that you probably would not have had.
100%. And you said something there, like you wouldn't just solely rely on the information of the homeowner.
Yeah.
Because they're financially motivated for you to buy this thing.
Exactly.
So they're going to tell you the things you want to hear. Same is true of franchising. You don't want to, unless you're very familiar with a brand, I would encourage you, don't knock on the door of a franchisor and say, I want to buy or tell me about it. Because you're going to hear all the good things. Our job is to make sure we make you very aware of the positives and the things that you need to be, looking out for when buying this franchise.
That's right.
Well, and to be kind of the key in on that of, you would only feel comfortable if hey, I'm already a gutter guy. I can really vet out what he's talking about on Brothers Gutters because I'm a gutter guy. And so many people go into franchise models thinking they got to be the expert up front. Where if you are the expert, you need a franchise model less than everybody else. The franchise model is to bring you that expertise. So don't limit yourself to just industries that just brands that Open yourself up to, what do I want as a business model? Semi-absentee, what's my return? What's my investment? How many team members? All that kind of stuff. And be a little bit industry and brand agnostic and go find a business model that matches your criteria.
Yeah, 100%. Totally agree.
Yeah, I totally agree. And the thing, I've worked with lots of franchise development people over the years, and so many times they're buying gutters or restoration or donuts or all these things. I'm like, what do you know about these? And they're like, I don't know anything about that industry, but I believe in this brand. So there's no greater validation than when your financial advisor is invested into the same mutual fund they're recommending to you. Same is true here, right? We have people on our team and others that we've worked with that invest into these brands just like our clients.
So one of the things that I do is when I see a brand, I Google it and see if it's available in my market, right? I Google and see if I can try out its service. Mosquito Shield, for example. I wanted to get Mosquito Shield service in my area. So that's another way, when you're taking a look at a brand, see if it's available. Go and test drive it.
Okay, let's talk about misconception number 2. Clients call us and they say, when I buy a franchise, am I just going to be a glorified manager? For me, I don't even know where to begin. I just want to say it is so far from you being a glorified manager. It's why I'm so passionate about helping people buy franchises. You are an entrepreneur. As an entrepreneur, you get the benefit of the business. You get the risk of the business. I mean, you got to get debt. You got to find employees, but it can be so rewarding when it works. But I could hog this whole topic because I'm so passionate about it, but I don't want to. So you guys, what do you think when somebody says, am I going to be a glorified manager? How do you answer that?
First, I'm going to say no, right? Because there's something that happens in business ownership that we don't talk about a lot. And it's a 4-letter word called work, right? So it's not a job, but there's so much work that's involved in terms of building this business, building a team, building a sense of community around you so that you can make sure that you're succeeding. It's not just a job, right? There are so many other benefits that are going along with it.
Yeah. And if you think about it, most of my clients that say that, they follow up with, well, corporate makes money off of this. And if that's the definition of working for somebody, then you work for your landlord, you work for your vendors. Everybody makes money off of this, right? Sure. Like that is capitalism. That is you owning a business, they own a business, whatever. So just because somebody else makes money off of it doesn't mean you're making any less money.
That's right.
You're not a manager. You are part of a thriving economy, and everybody has a piece in it.
Mm-hmm.
That is such a good point. I'm glad you brought that up, because usually when they say, am I going to be a glorified manager? What the real underlying question is are my royalties justified? Am I getting value for that? And why am I signing a legal document? Mm-hmm. So let's talk real quick about both. The legal document, it's the same reason my neighborhood has covenances, right? Because if my neighbor decides that they want to park an RV in the garage or in the driveway for an extended period of time, my property value goes down, right? And so they have rules against that. Same in franchising. This legal document protects your business to be sure that the brand is protected nationwide. You don't want one person in some other state that has shady customer service and it runs on national news, and now all of a sudden the value of your business goes down, right? It protects it. Second is the royalty. Like, why am I paying a royalty to a franchisor? Because you should be getting value back greater than your expense. I've got another video that talks about how you really list out all the things that you're going to get from a franchisor. You look at the cost based on their average sales and you say, could I go do this for the same amount of money? If the answer is no, you quickly understand royalties are of value to you. So yeah, as you can see, I'm a big believer in the protection of the business and also how to evaluate royalties. But let's talk about the other benefits of business ownership, right? The opposite of having a job. Let's talk about the long-term exit value, right? As a franchisee, what do you guys think of that?
Yeah. When you leave a job, no matter how long you've been there, you give all your stuff back and you walk away and you go back down to zero income, and then you got to go find another one, right? Where in this, you have built an asset. Every day, every task, every piece of effort is going towards building that exit value. So every long night and all that kind of stuff is building it for you, not somebody else, And that's the difference between being an employee and a business owner, is you're building stuff for your family every time you do something. And every time anybody on your team does something, they're building value for your family as well.
That's true. And I think about my own franchising story. So when I exited my business, first, when I got into the business, so I rolled over my 401k from my 9-to-5 job to get into the business.
Good for you.
And I was thinking about long-term, what my exit strategy was going to look like. And I started to see that business as, this is my retirement fund. So every single day I'm working in this business and working on it and building it, because I'm also building my retirement. So that's another benefit to owning that business, because when you exit, that is your retirement nest egg, so you can roll it into another business, or you can go and retire and enjoy the rest of your life.
Exit is multiple things, right? Exit is sell it. An exit is exit your operational time, right? So just because I have exited mentally, maybe time-wise, but I can still get the benefit, right? I had a business for 3 years that was in a completely different state. I would meet with my guy once a quarter for about an hour. In my mind, I had exited, right? Now, I didn't do that day one, right? I spent 6 years in that business, building it up, all that kind of stuff, building it for my family. And then I could exit my time and keep that benefit. I couldn't, in this job, I can't call and say, hey, I've worked really hard for a few years. Can you keep sending me my salary? But I'm going to stop working on it.
Right.
That doesn't happen.
It doesn't work like that.
That's such a good point. And again, why this misconception is so far from the truth, right? I talk about why entrepreneurship is the unfair wealth creator in America is I use the acronym WELD, write-offs, exit value, lower taxes, and depreciation. As a franchisee, you get to take advantage of all four of those things. And it's just, it's your business. It's a business that already has a blueprint. And so you are not a glorified manager. You are truly a business owner that gets to follow a system that is going to hopefully create success quicker for you than you could do it on your own.
True.
Well, and you're following a system, but in your way, your flavor, your way, right? It is there as a support, not a handcuff, right? It's going, these are the things that you should be doing to be successful. And for me, growing up as a college athlete, I just like to execute. I'm not the idea guy. I'm not the coach. I'm not here's what I should do. And I did some independent businesses that I thought I want to do that. And God, I hated it, right? I felt more like a manager in that one because I was wearing all these hats. I was doing, in my mind, remedial stuff that my franchisor handles. And I can just execute the plan. So in my mind, that franchisor is a little bit more my manager. He's doing the stuff I don't like to do. And I get to be the business owner and benefit from it.
True. And think about it this way too. So nowhere can you take a job and pass it down to your kids, right? So one of the benefits of business ownership is I build this business because it is a legacy that I am eventually going to pass down to people that I love. So that's another thing to think about.
Just another great point. I mean, point after point after point of why owning a franchise is truly you being an entrepreneur and it's not buying a job. All right, misconception number 3. One of the ones we hear maybe more than others, especially by experienced people, could I do this myself for less, right? So let's focus on 3 areas of the cost of a franchise. That number 1 is the upfront fees, your franchise fee, things like that. Number 2, we'll get into ongoing fees. And the last is, what does it cost to do it yourself versus doing it within a franchise? So what do you guys think? The franchise fee, let's talk about that.
Yeah, I think a lot of it is, what do I get for that? Right? We've had videos on like brand, right? If I don't know the brand, then, that amount is what I'm paying for that franchise fee. No, that is time. Right? So some of these brands been around for 20 years. You're paying $50,000 to get 20 years worth of learnings. Done.
That's a good point.
Right? Like think of masterminds, things of, formal education. You pay a lot more for a lot less experience and do it every single day of the year. But in this, there's this misconception of what am I getting? You're getting time. And I get this the most, honestly, from both categories of clients, right? So I specialize in bigger clients that have been super successful entrepreneur. And they go, well, I can knock this off. I've ran 5 different companies, blah, blah, blah. And what they forget is that the first 6 years of that company sucked.
Right.
Absolutely sucked. Slept on the floor, lost all their money, didn't see their kids, pricing was wrong, market fit was wrong, all that kind of stuff. They just remember the last 2 years where their manager was running it and it was gravy and they're going, I could do that again.
Exactly.
Right? You are fast forwarding to the good part. For $50,000, $30,000, whatever that franchise fee is, worth it.
Mike, you jumped to something that is so near and dear to me. I don't know if that's the right word to use, but it's my own story. So I was the COO for a GNC franchisee, and we had the top 5 producing franchise stores in the country, right out of the Midwest. We weren't in New York or LA or Miami. We're in Omaha and Des Moines. And then I went from being the COO of that to becoming a franchisor of a nutrition store, right? And we opened our own stores, and we were cocky. We thought we knew everything, right? So we went into this and we're like, we were the best of the best franchisees. We're going to do our own thing. So we set it up and we opened the doors. We expected people to flood in, and it was crickets. Nobody walked in. It took us 2 years to turn a profit in that business, going from the number one franchisee in the country to eventually, opening our own. And it took 2 years to turn a profit because we didn't have the same level of experience or didn't appreciate all the things we got: a point of sale system, a national brand, marketing that was already created, products that were coming in the door. All those things had to be recreated. It is so much more difficult to do it on your own than with a franchisor.
Yeah, totally agree. And the thing that I think about is that trial and error factor, right? So you're coming into a system that is built for you to succeed. So if you're building it on your own, you've got some trial and error that you've got to take into consideration, that you're probably going to make a whole lot of mistakes, and those mistakes are probably going to cost you some money. So you're coming into a system that is built with a proven support and proven success that's sort of wrapped into a bundle for you, and you've got to take that trial and error out of it.
Yeah, and how do you trust that? Because we're going to connect you with existing franchisees that you can ask that question, right? Is it worth it? Are you making money? Would you do it again, right? So it's not like you're walking into this blind and you're handing over, whatever the franchise fee is. You get to ask a whole bunch of people if it was worth it before you make your decision. Good. So that's franchise fee. This one kind of goes along with it too, but let's talk about ongoing royalties, right? So it's not just a franchise fee. It's going to be a percentage of sales ongoing. So what do you think when somebody looks at the royalty, how do they justify that?
I think it's write down what you're getting for it and go out into the open market and see what it would cost you. Mm-hmm. So I own some independent businesses. I own some franchises, and they were similar business models. So it was an easy apples to apples for me. And on my independent, I had my own marketing guy that had to come in-house. Instead of having a really good marketer at corporate that, all 300 of us are paying 1/100th of his salary, I was paying the whole thing. So 1, he was expensive. 2, I had to manage it myself, and I don't know marketing. So how am I supposed to know if he's doing a good job? So that trial and error you talked about, but also the level that I could afford on my own was some college kid that knew nothing versus a CMO that is vetted, knows what he's doing. So I just had to go cheap on everything because I was paying for it outright. Instead of splitting that cost, I'm paying a little piece. So is everybody else, and it's collectively getting us a lot of support.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I think it's a pretty easy formula, and I did a video on this. I would go to your item 19 and look at what are the average sales of this franchise brand. Let's call it $500,000, and then say, what's the royalty? It's 6%, right? So let's say you're going to pay $30,000 over the course of a year to go create this $500,000, and then go and look what the franchisor provides you. Write that down on the left side, write $30,000 on the right side, and just look at it and say, like you said, Mike, if I got to go pay for all these things, is it going to cost me more or less than $30,000? If it's going to cost you more on your own for that, it is a no-brainer. Jump into that thing because that franchisor is providing value.
And what's your time worth? Right? So even if it's close, right? How many times do we pay for convenience, right? It's a big thing. Once you get to a certain level where you are covering your living expenses, the rest of your income really goes to buying convenience in life.
Yes.
Right? Mm-hmm. So if I could nickel and dime my way to saving $1,000 a year, but I'm putting 40 hours into that every single week, at the end of the year, right? 40 hours times 52 weeks for $1,000, pennies is what I'm valuing my time on. So what's your time worth?
Yeah, time is currency, and it's the same thing. Every time in my businesses, every time I've hired another person to join that was doing a portion of what I was already doing, it was for me to get some of my time back. So I'm paying to get my time back. Now, what am I going to do with that time? I got a couple of choices. I can either spend it in relaxation or doing things with my family that I enjoy, or I can spend that time to create the next growth opportunity. I have the mindset where I love my family. I spend as much time as I can with them, but I've been able to go create the next opportunity multiple times that has continued to allow me to level up, right? And that's what I really encourage our franchise clients to consider is it's not buying one franchise and now all of a sudden you're living life on your own terms. The reality of it is running one franchise is more difficult than running 10. Why? Because when I have 10, I now have a whole infrastructure of people supporting me. So I encourage people not just to look at the initial royalty, but to always have the mindset of how do I invest into getting more time so I can go into that next growth mindset. And then eventually you become what we call an empire builder, right? An empire builder is somebody that can walk away from their business for 30 days without an interruption. Somebody who knows what they owe and taxes, knows their financials, and knows their competitive advantage and how they retain employees. Somebody that has cash available for that next opportunity, and somebody that has what I call the survivor alliance around them, right? Your lawyer, your banker, your CPA, your financial advisor, and your franchise advisor. You need to work to get to the empire builder stage. And I promise you, you are living a life that others will dream of if you continue to invest in what you talked about, which is getting time to do those things. Okay, the last piece of this misconception that I want to talk about is, what about when you're ready to exit the business, right? If you're doing a business on your own versus if you own a business as a franchise, it's two very different paths to sell your business. Toronto, what do you think? Like, what are the advantages or disadvantages of being a franchise and selling your business?
So I think one of the advantages of being in a franchise and getting ready to exit that business is when you're getting ready to sell, you can essentially call somebody in the franchise because they are already vested into that business. They believe in that business model. So it's not really as hard of a sale as if you were having to list a business out, right, with a broker and things of that nature. And so call up the franchise and tell them, hey, I'm looking for my exit strategy. I can guarantee you that they probably already have people who are wanting to expand their territory or people who are interested in your market. And so that's one of the easiest ways to exit in your franchise is to go through your franchisor.
It's also a great way to expand, right? So I started with one location and the state was sold out when I got in, right? So I was a little bit limited. Well, things changed for everybody, right? Like the guy that I bought from, he moved, right? He had a great business, but he didn't want to live in Colorado and own things in Virginia. So I had talked to my franchisor and said, hey, I'm looking. When something comes available in my area that would be a good fit, connect us. The process was quick. I already knew it. I didn't have to go, well, I wonder if it's a good business. I already knew the business. I just wanted to expand. And, on the other side of that, when I sold my independent business, it took us 2 years because one, you have to explain the business that's unique and say, well, it's kind of like this, but it's not a direct comp.
Right.
So you don't know what to list it at. You don't have a built-in buyer group. You're interviewing a ton of different brokers that, honestly, my guy was not good. And it just took forever. And it was just strange, to be honest. People that had no clue looking at businesses came in, and buyers are looking for the same thing. When you're selling an independent business, it's the same thing as you're looking at when you're buying a franchise of going, are there systems? Buying an independent business? You don't know.
You don't know.
For that, to be honest, I was the business. When I exited, there went a lot of the stuff. Right?
Yeah.
Where in a franchise model, hey, yeah, he's a great operator, but here's 17 other franchisees, different backgrounds, different markets doing the same numbers. I know I'm getting into something strong.
Mike, you make such a great point. And I want to piggyback on that because, if you're in a franchise, I've seen it happen many times. If you're in a franchise, you have the ability to sell not only when you're performing really well, but sometimes you get franchisees that are like, hey, I'm not performing as well as I want, or I'm just at break even, or maybe I'm even losing a little bit of money. When you're in a franchise system, you still have the opportunity to exit out of that business. Why? Because other franchisees are going to look at your business and say, I'm already doing it well. I know how to do what you're missing. I was that back in the GNC days, right? My job as COO was to identify underperforming GNC locations, go out there, check it out, make them an offer and buy them. And we would buy them very cheap. We would apply our business model to it and it would grow quickly. Now, those franchisees, why could they sell that business? Because we had confidence. We knew their business. We had confidence we could step in right away and fix it, make it better. And we did. Now, if those were independent nutrition stores, wouldn't have touched them with a 10-foot pole, right? Because we have no idea what the customer experience is like, the products, the POS, the marketing, any of those things. And like you said, Mike, they'd have to explain it to us. We would then have to come to agreement on evaluation. And those things are just high hurdles to overcome. So that's the nice thing about being in a franchise is you can sell both the successful businesses and the ones that maybe aren't where you want them to be.
And I find that there's a lot of similarities in the franchising industry and real estate, right? There's different players, right? And one of the brands I was in, there were kind of the builders. Think of that as a real estate developer. They would go into a new market and they would get this thing from $0 to $1 million, and they liked the startup thing and they were not the long-term operators. And they would sell it to a guy that's got a ton of cash, no operational experience. He's going to tie in that GM and be the buy and hold guy, right? The renter. I was the flipper. I would like to find a distressed one like Ryan was talking about, knowing that's undervalued and I know what my, value could get to if he runs it the right way. I'd come in, I'd get it cheap, and I'd turn around and I'd sell it to buy and hold, or I would rent it out and do the Burr model, right? Like so much similarity between franchising and real estate. It's the same thing in different asset class.
And let's not forget, when you sell to another franchisee, you're not paying a business broker 8 to 10% off the top line to sell your business. So again, the misconception that is it worth it? I think we've done a nice job of explaining all the value in becoming a franchisee.